Welcome everybody. If you are on, introduce yourself real quick. I know we got people from all over the country, probably a few people who will be showing up here in a while from overseas. So thanks a lot. I see a lot of friends that are out there. I appreciate you being there, and I also see a couple of new faces as well. So, it's been a while since we've had this shot to do it. I've been actually in a laboratory for the last couple of weeks, working on some really cool artificial intelligence stuff that I'm really excited about. So, but I've missed you. I've missed these times just to connect with you guys and put together a webinar. And I hope you get some cool things out of this. So let's just jump right in. But first, I'll have a couple of notes here. First is that in the chat box, I'm looking at the chats now. Again, just say hi. If you don't mind. And there is the deck that you're going to see. You can download it from the chat section. So just to let you guys know, you can totally download that right now if you want to. I am also going to send a link to this presentation. So don't worry, I'm going to go ahead and send this link out. You can watch the video later. There's a lot of people that have signed up that are going to watch the video later. And I will take questions at the end if you have any. So but if you do have a question, go ahead and drop it into the chat box. Good to see you, Aaron. So let's just jump right in. I know we only have about 30 minutes, and I want to talk about these 4 behavioral insights that are needed. They're necessary to drive brand growth today. So the first thing would be, let me just keep letting people in, would be the reason why I'm even here really is a podcast that I listened to just a little while ago, and it was from Ann Mukherjee. She is the CEO of North America over at Pernod Ricard, and Pam Forbes. She is the CMO over at Pernod Ricard in North America, and I've worked with both of these brilliant people. And I was listening to a podcast, and if you care to watch it, it's actually, I've referenced it here. It's called Creativity is the Oxygen for Growth. And so it's on Adweek, but you can just look this up. If you were to look up Ann Mukherjee, Pam Forbes, Adweek, you'll find this, especially if you write in Creativity is the Oxygen for Growth. And during this podcast, there was this comment. It's in like the first 3 minutes, okay? So, and what Ann talks about, now Ann was formerly the head of all of insights at PepsiCo. That's when I worked with her. Pam was my vice president. And Ann says this comment. She says, marketing has gone from just building brand equity to marketing is really at the heart of value creation for business, value creation for business. And then she goes on a couple seconds later to say, value creation comes from the intersection of consumer behavior and behavioral economics. So what I want to tell my research friends out there is that at the end of the day, our value and our importance to business has never been more important now. It's never been greater. Our ability to influence the organizations that we have. Why? Because all value creation is by definition a change in consumer behavior, like monetary value, making sure that our brands grow and that you could sell that brand in the marketplace for more. That is always by definition through a change in consumer behavior. Top line revenue growth comes from people changing their behavior in some way. So I love to say this to insights, my brethren, my contacts out there, is that we are uniquely qualified to be able to be a part of this growth because we study human behavior every single day. Nobody else gets to do this. Brand managers are studying how to grow their brands. They're into analytics. They're into marketing and all sorts of production, things like that. And then we also have ad agencies. They're thinking about building brand equity and things like that. But we as marketing insights professionals, we have the ability right now to bring value creation into our wheelhouse. And one of the ways we can do this is thinking of ourselves as behavioral designers. So I think our time is right now. We used to think of this world as an insights professionals. Our job was to architect for brand consideration, build brand equity, so you can drive consideration for our brands. And I am absolutely all for that. However, behavioral sciences and the 4 insights I'm going to talk to you about today help us build brand choices, meaning we can now understand the words, the visuals, and how to put those words and visuals together to drive somebody to select our brand over another one. So we as insights professionals, if we use behavioral sciences in our insights creation, we can now tell our brand managers what to say. we can tell them how to say it. And frankly, we can just say it for them or tell agencies like, here are the things you should be going to say, because we now understand what makes kind of people tick. So, but you have to start somewhere. And sometimes I think when we have an issue with our brand, we're thinking to ourselves, okay, I got to grow our brand. Okay, so let's drive sales. However, I think more important question to be asked is, what is the lever that's going to give us the most sales in the shortest amount of time? This is why I think before you start looking at your insights plans or whatever, you need to do some basic business analytics to understand the lever that you need to kind of pull on to grow the brand immediately. So it's just basic business analytics. And I think if more consumer insights people went into that space, you could be much more influential in the organization. So which lever do you have to grow? Do you have to drive penetration? Do you have to drive impulsivity? Do you have to be able to charge more? Do you have to get better placement? Like, these basic business analytics are going to help us understand which behavioral science insight to focus on. And then all I have to do from there is, once you know the behavioral science insight, then go focus your insights efforts on figuring out that one problem, which is what we're going to do now. So the first human insight that I really want you to focus on, especially if you need to increase penetration of your brand or increase trial, you have a brand new innovation that's out there, you launched it, and you really want to drive trial, I want you to think in your mind goal theory. So here's why. Goals direct and reconfirm our purchase decisions in the moment. From a psychological perspective, it's our goals that tell our minds kind of what to focus on. So it's very clear in goal theory that really all a goal is the distance between where you are right now and where you want to be in the future. So because of that, where you want to be in the future, we call these things aspirational goals. Aspirational goals, when you speak to your target's aspirations, it automatically grabs, and if you do it right, it will maintain their attention on your ad, whether that's in an aisle, it's on your website, it's on a landing page, it's in your email, whatever it is that you're building. If you speak to people's aspirational goals, you can actually grab and maintain their attention. So I want you to know that, if you read a little bit about goal theory, there's actually two types of goals that you're going to want to go figure out. The first one is called functional goals, and the next one is aspirational goals. Now, I've already talked about the aspirational goals. Aspirational goals, when you speak to somebody's aspirations of where they want to be in the future as it relates to your category, you will be able to grab and maintain their attention. That's really important if you're going to drive penetration and increase trial of your brand. Now, what happens though, in the moment of making a decision or thinking about, should I buy this or not, you need to reconfirm that your brand, your product has the correct features that will in fact allow them to reach their aspirational goals. That's why we use these things called functional goals. So if we've ever done work, some of you out there, we've done work together. And this is why I try to figure out what the functional goals that people ask for when they're considering choosing your brand or your product. That's why I ask these questions, because what happens is when people tell you their functional goals, if I ask them, hey, what's important to you as it relates to buying pet food? Whatever they say, those are those functional goals that come to top of mind first. And what's good about that is when you can speak to somebody's functional goals, you're going to be much more likely to focus them on those features, and those features will confirm that, yes, you will in fact help them reach their aspirational goals. So at the end of the day, really, I want you to leave with this. If you need to increase penetration of your brand, if you need to increase trial of your brand, remember that we always seek to reach our aspirational goals, whether we know it or not. So find out what the aspirational goals of your customers are, and then figure out what are those functional goals they have. And if you can speak to both those aspirational goals and those functional goals, you will be able to build communications that will focus their attention and their behaviors. So that's why if you're having any issues, if you're thinking about Q4 and you're thinking about, we're going to drive this new innovation out the door and you want to increase trial or penetration, certainly you can talk all the great things about your brand, but you better be speaking to your customers' aspirational goals and then talk about those features that confirm that they will in fact reach those aspirational goals. Now, let me give you an example that I love around Nike. And what they did here in the Simone Biles ad is certainly they could have talked about our clothing wicks sweat faster, we're breathable, we have elastic that is better than anybody else's. Those are nice functional goals to have. That's not how Nike messages, right? Here's how Nike messages. Nike realizes that the aspirational goal of most athletes out there, both competitive athletes, but many, many more people that are out there, kind of weekend athletes like me, that at the end of the day, they're thinking to themselves, I want to be seen as being the best on my field. So I play tennis recently. So I love tennis. And what I want to do is have the equipment that I need so that I can be my very best. And if I'm at my very best and I beat the person ahead of me or the person on the other side of that net, really what that says to me is I have this story now. And I have this story inside my heart. And I have this story I can tell my family or my friends about how I dominated the person over there. Nike realizes this. So rather than talking about the features of their product, here's what they do. They literally tell you, do things history could only dream of. And of course, where they put Simone Biles, the most prolific gymnast and maybe athlete, at least of our generation. You can make the case of all time. And what do they do then? They put in their logo, just do it. Now, interesting enough, they don't sell leotards. Nike doesn't sell leotards. They don't sell anything that you see in this picture, as a matter of fact. Isn't that crazy? But they realize that they could place this signage by a bunch of water bottles that will grab the attention of anybody who's not just necessarily a gymnast aficionado, but thinks about doing things that history could only dream of. And by doing that, they're much more able to grab somebody's attention, and then they can reconfirm that, wow, if I buy this water bottle, if I buy these sweatbands, I will in fact be able or more likely to do things that history could only dream of. This is why it's so important to grab people's attention and maintain that attention. So let's move on and let's next talk about what if you're in a situation where you are trying to increase repeat, increase frequency of your brand, or maybe bring back lapsed users. So when my clients ask me about, we have lapsed users, we're trying to bring people that have stopped using our brand back into our portfolio. In my mind, I'm thinking motivational psychology. Yeah, there's some other things that there's some overlaps, but what I'm thinking in my mind is I better understand the motivation. Why? Because I know that our motivations provide emotional fuel to re-engage with brands. So let's say if you're a restaurant operator out there, and you've probably felt the pinch of this, the pain of this, where you have your restaurant out there and you get a big influx of people trying your restaurant out and you get great customer reviews. People are shaking your hand. They're loving what they got on the menu. And then you start seeing after the first 3 weeks, your frequency is dying, right? You're not getting these same people that just told you 2 weeks ago that you're the best Italian restaurant out there. Here's the reason why that's happening is that even though you have great features, you have great, food, you're not really tapping into the core motivation that drives people to get up out of their car and drive past their old Italian restaurant to go to yours. So you got to think about motivations, and that's for any brand that's out there. If you're trying to increase repeat frequency or lapsed users, you want to understand what's that emotional fuel that they need to feel so that your brand will come to mind and that they will rebuy your brand. They'll re-engage with your brand. Now, the good news on this is that there's really only 9 of these desires that are out there. Motivational psychology has really been aggregated. And there are basically 9 total human motivations that create 9 distinct desires. If you know these 9 distinct desires, you can now integrate these into your communications to, again, hopefully build up more repeat frequency and lapsed users. It only comes to 9. People will either desire success, freedom, acceptance, mastery, control, captivation. And captivation can be like a moment of relaxation, or captivation can be a moment of levity and excitement, admiration, care, or safety. There's only 9. So what you got to do with your insights is figure out which of these 9, maybe 2, will be most important for your brand to be focusing on to kind of re-engage that customer that maybe it's lapsed on you for a while. So by discovering your customer's core human motivation and that desire that's driving those purchases, you're better able to engage or create a comprehensive re-engagement strategy. So second insight is motivations. That's what you're going to be focusing on if you want to solve for these. So let me give you an example real quick of what Modelo has recently been doing. I think they're doing an amazing job at bringing not only just driving penetration, but re-engaging brand users. Okay, real quick. let's talk about this. So you may be looking at this ad and you're thinking, oh, okay, so they created an ad about football. It's football season. Yes, but they actually did a lot more than that. So imagine you're in a world where Bud Light has been the category captain, has dominated beer sales domestically anyways, since 2001. For over 20 years, Bud Light has not really had much competition out there. It's been basically a second place game for the vast majority of brands. So what does Modelo do? They have this opportunity right now. And what they see now is that they have the opportunity to become the #1 brand. So what do they do to do that? So first thing that they do, and if I was their brand manager, I would love a brand like, I would love a commercial just like this, because what I want to do is use the motivation called belonging, which is our desire for affiliation. What I want to do is I want you to affiliate my brand with lots of people, and lots of people are using Modelo. So that's why I have a whole stadium in my advertising of people holding Modelo beer. I want to create this affiliation that lots of people are now drinking Modelo. This will bring in new users, but it's also getting those people that try Modelo every so often, but now you can re-engage with those people. And the second thing I would be doing, I would be dropping every dollar I have to get on every single end cap possible, because you're establishing for your customers a new habit, a new ritual, because the old ritual and the old habit has now been broken. I'm going to tell you that Bud Light was not the #1 beer because they were winning taste tests. What their #1 beer was because they had great rituals and great habits. Easy to drink, low price, but it's always where you expect it to be. People got into a big habit. You grow, you grab a case of Bud Light and you go and you move on it for your football game. So if I was Modelo, which they're doing right here, all I'm trying to do is show lots of people are using my brand, and I'm going to show it all over the store. And if I can do that, then I'm going to be much more likely to re-engage customers that have kind of used me every so often, bought me for a special event, to becoming their everyday beer. Okay, so the next thing I want you to think about is you might be a brand out there, or maybe a retailer. You might be working for a retail brand, and you're thinking to yourself, I want to increase trips. I want to increase my basket ring, and I have to take pricing. Like, I have to start charging more. How do I go about charging more for my purchase or for my brand? When you think these questions, I want you in your mind to think regulatory approach, because our regulatory approach actually lowers friction, and we do this via framing effects. So people are very resistant to marketing. They're very, very resistant to sale. It's kind of a natural thing that we have. But the fact of the matter is that if you write your copy in a way that follows the natural intuition of your customers, you're much more likely to lower friction to things like, a price increase, or getting somebody to buy get an upsell buy. You can actually write in a way that makes that feel more intuitive, more natural. So properly framing your benefits, or those features we talked about in the first slide there, allows you to lower friction to increase engagement and your purchases. And there's only 2 things you have to worry about here. So this is why, if I've worked with you, I talk about optimistic framing and cautious framing. So when your customers, your customers are talking about your brand and what the benefits that they deliver, your brand delivers, you're going to use language that's going to tell you they are either optimistic or that they're cautious. Optimistic is that they want your brand to provide them more good in their life. Very simplistic way to think about it, but that's the fact. Or they're going to talk in a way that's going to lead you to say, oh, they want my brand to give you less bad, or give them less bad. So now if you understand which approach your customers are using, you can tweak the way you communicate your features, so that now you can make it more salient. You can make it resonate. So when somebody is thinking about, hey, this price just went up a little bit, it's going to flow so naturally that you're going to be more likely to get somebody go, you know what? It's a good brand. It's a little more expensive. I'm going to go ahead and purchase it, right? So if you want to increase trips to a grocery store, if you want to build basket ring, if you want to increase your perceived value, think regulatory focus. And when you can do this, you can lower that friction that you need to get somebody to go to your store more often, to have them buy more items in their basket or in their grocery cart, as well as, be willing to actually pay a little bit more for it. So I love this campaign from Bloke Advertising. They're out of Australia, and what they did was they're helping McQueen, which is a wine brand. Some of you may know them. They're really big over in Europe, especially in the UK, in driving frequency and really bringing people into stores to bring them by bringing McGuian. So here's their campaign. If you go right now to almost any internet site or whatever, you want to go to your browser, check out wine ads, you're going to basically find that almost all wine ads do the same thing. They're either going to tell you where in the world they're grown. They're going to show you beautiful fields that are out there and lots of wine and things like that, beautiful sunsets. That's how they're going to promote their wine. Or they're going to tell you some awards that they've won. McGuian did something very different. McGuian actually went and they said that we're going to do something slightly different because we understand that a lot of wine drinkers are pretty intimidated with buying wine, especially with the fear of if I go to a party and I bring a bad wine, I can actually just, have the consequences are so high that the person I give the wine to, the table's drinking the wine, they have this visceral reaction that's a bad wine. That is a big fear, especially for young wine drinkers. So if you're a young wine drinker, what do? You go into this massive wine lobby or an aisle, and there's just so many different brands from different regions. And what do? Most people just look at the label. They don't know what to buy. What does McGuian do? McGuian says, yeah, you could buy all these other brands that are saying the same thing, but what we're going to tell you to do is you don't want to get caught with a bad wine in your hand. Let me just make it very simple for you. Bring a McGuian. You can avoid bad things in your life if you buy a McGuian. So by focusing on this, and there's no other campaign that was like this, they were it drove a ton of awards, but more importantly, it drove trips to grocery stores because especially for new wine buyers, they knew that they could actually avoid bad things in their life, lowering that resistance to figuring out what wine I want to buy. They could lowered resistance, had them bring a McGuian. So it's kind of a cool example, I think, of how to zag when everyone else is zigging with your communications. But they only knew this because they focused on the regulatory fit, or what we call optimistic versus cautious approach. They knew that approach that they wanted to take advantage of. And the last insight that I want you to consider if you're trying to grow your brand, especially if you need to increase impulsivity or build baskets, like the number of items that people buy, I want you to think about cognitive heuristics. This is behavioral economics 101. There's tons of companies out there talking about the importance of behavioral economics. However, I think a lot of these companies talk about behavioral economics as saying like behavioral economics is going to solve all of your brand growth problems. That is not true. It will do a great job if you want to build impulsivity. You want somebody, you're going to be in the front register, you have a low price item, and you want somebody to go buy you for trial, whatever. It's great for impulsivity. And it can get somebody, again, because you can help drive impulse purchases, you can build baskets. So just so you know, what's interesting about these cognitive heuristics is that we all use them. And what they do is they help us make decisions very fast. And when you make fast, easy decisions, you're more likely to take that decision and forward and actually buy something. So we use these things all the time. Now, you would have known these things as maybe scarcity effect or maybe loss aversion or social proof. There's a whole bunch of them out there. I'll tell you that I found that there's about 21 that we see again and again and again. Those are the 21 that I focus on first when I'm trying to figure out why people are choosing the brands that they choose and why they're making the decisions that they make. And sometimes I'll expand outside of that 21. There's really only about 21 total. But if my clients are asking me, hey, I got to get really short-term sales up, I need to increase my impulse purchases. What I'm doing at this point is I am absolutely thinking cognitive heuristics and behavioral economics. When I think about these two, cognitive heuristics and behavioral economics, I am much more likely to get somebody to go ahead and take this impulse purchase maybe otherwise they wouldn't actually buy. I can get them to buy. So here's a company that is doing this really well, and they've been doing it for a while, actually, Booking.com. So what I love about this ad is there's two things actually going on with Booking.com. The first thing is I love this kind of tagline, though it's not really a tagline. They say Planet Earth's #1 accommodation site, and that's trademarked, right? So that's not really a proof point. That is not like a factual proof point that they have to uphold. It's basically a tagline. What they're doing with that tagline is creating some social proof. It's the Planet Earth's #1, whatever that means, accommodation site. So they're bringing this feeling for people who haven't really used Booking.com. Is it different than Hotels.com, et cetera? It brings this feeling of there's lots of other people that are doing this, that are using it. Therefore, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stay on this site. More importantly, if you haven't done this, you should just do this after the event, after this webinar. Go to Booking.com and just go look up a hotel in New York City, San Francisco. I don't care where you do it. and do two things. One is look for a hotel room in the next couple of days, and then look for a hotel room that's in the next couple of weeks. Here's what you're going to see a lot. They're kind of known for this. You're going to start scrolling up and looking at hotel rooms, and you're going to see that they say the same thing again and again. Only 2 rooms at this price on our site, or they'll say only 5 rooms, 6 rooms, or 7 rooms. 4 numbers. It comes, and sometimes they'll throw in a 1. They keep saying the same thing again and again. There's only 2 rooms, or 5, 6, or 7 rooms at this price on our site. What they're doing is creating a scarcity effect, and they know the exact number. They can't tell you, oh, there's only 12 rooms on this site, because you go, well, if there's 12, I'm probably okay to, maybe, I'll come back and see if the rate drops a little bit. They don't do that. They use scarcity effect very well, and you could tell that they're doing it well because they're using the same numbers. And then eventually, my guess would be they could get a really good understanding of your personal buying habits, and then tell you they know that you will react better with 6 rooms versus 7 rooms, etc. So anyways, they are using these cognitive heuristics to trigger this impulsivity, so you'll stay on their site and actually buy that room. And so that's why I really focus on behavioral economics. If my clients are asking me, I need short-term sales growth, I'm going to focus a lot on these heuristics. So ultimately, it's my last slide, guys. Value creation, the thing that every CEO wants from us, it's going to come from a change in consumer behavior. And all changes in consumer behavior, by definition, will come from behavioral science-based insights. So again, if you want to drive penetration and trial, I'm thinking goal theory. If my clients are asking for more repeat purchases, increase my frequency, increase my lapsed users, I'm thinking motivational psychology. If you want to increase trips, basket ring, or perceived value, think about approach, whether I'm going to speak to that's somebody who's in a cautious approach or an optimistic approach. And lastly, if I need to build my basket size, like the number of items in my basket, or just increase impulse purchases, then I'm thinking impulsivity. So with that, thank you very much. I'm going to look at the chat box here. And if you have, hey, Jen, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, and I will take questions for as long as they're here. And just so you guys know, if you guys showed up late, I'm going to send a link to this this presentation, and also in the chat box, you can actually download this deck right now if you want to, but I'll also include it in my email to you as well.